to the second part of session 7, which deals with the documentation in international rail transport. Here we are going to look at how a consignment note can be completed and also be distributed to the appropriate receivers. Documents in international rail transport are quite different, and they have to be done appropriately because they come in different copies, and the right copy should be given to the appropriate person. Otherwise, whatever they hold, if it's not the appropriate copy, would not be accepted for the purpose they might intend to use it for. The objectives in this second part of session 7 are 3. 1. To understand the main content of CIM Consignment Note used in international rail transport. 2. To understand how it is completed. And then 3. To identify the right receivers of various copies. So these are the headings which we are going to go through in this second session. Let me begin here and take you through very quickly the different sessions of the consignment note. And when I finish, I'll show you what a consignment note is like, because the various parts of it are numbered just as I have numbered them here. And what is done in any particular part is explained here. The part 1 of the consignment note is for the name and address of consignor, just like a bill of lading or the other transport document we see. In consignment note, there are 3 things to note. Some particulars are mandatory to complete. So there can't be any shipment without the name and address of consignor. So you see I have M in bracket in front of number 1. It means it's mandatory. When you see O in bracket, it means that part is optional to complete. When it is C, it is conditional. It means it will depend on the transaction. So the first part of the consignment note is part 1. Part 1 is about the name and address of consignor, and it's mandatory. Part 2 is about customer code for the consignor. That is optional. If you want to put it there, fine. 3. Customer code for the payer of prepaid charges. Right. If the charges are going to be prepaid, then part 3 would have to be completed, which is optional. Part 4 is consignee name and address. This is mandatory because every cargo would require the name and address of the consignee to be stated on the transport document. Number 5 is optional, and this is the customer code for consignee. Part 6 is customer code for payer of prepaid charges, if it is not the consignee who is supposed to pay. So this is optional. If the consignee is paying, there is no need to do anything here. Part 7 is consignor's declaration committing the carrier. If there's anything to commit the carrier on, part 7 is where you put it. Part 8 is for consignor's reference. That is also optional. Part 9 is documents attached. It's optional. You list all the documents that is attached to the consignment note. The delivery point or the destination of the cargo is mandatory. So that is part 10. 11 is mandatory and it's about code for the delivery point. Apart from the name of the destination, all destinations on the network have codes, so that if the name should be mixed up or if there is another destination using the same name, then the code would differ. So it will help to identify which particular destination is being referred to. Part 12 is about the code of the station serving the delivery point, and it's also a code. It's mandatory. 13 is commercial specification. This is conditional upon what type of transaction is being. Part 14 is number of customer agreement of tariff. This is conditional. Part 15 is information for consignee. If there is any specific information for the consignee, this is where it's put on. It's optional anyway. Part 16 is also optional because it's the acceptance point, including station and country, date and time. 17 is code for acceptance point, because there's an acceptance point and then there is a code for it. 18 is conditional, the wagon number, where there is a full wagon load. You need to state it. 19 is sectional invoicing. 20 is payment instruction. 21 is the description of goods. It's conditional. 21 is exceptional consignment. C is conditional. 21 is the input, where you input a cross to show that the cargo being transported is dangerous goods. And that is where the regulation on transport of safe transport of dangerous goods come in. It's conditional because if it's not DG, you don't need to put a box there. 22 is NHM, where you insert the harmonized code or the HS code. And you know, in the acronym terms and abbreviations used, I mentioned HMS or HS code. There's a part of the consignment note where you have to declare the harmonized system code on the consignment note. 25 is mass or weight of consignment. This is mandatory, and it's now mandatory on maritime transport. The weight or mass of every cargo has to be stated because it will guide the loading and unloading. Because in the years gone by, the wrong equipment have been used to offload or load cargoes, and that have resulted in a lot of accidents. So now it's mandatory to know the weight to avoid, any risk. Part 26 is declaration of the value, which is conditional upon the transaction. 27 is interest in delivery. That will be conditional, but if you're paying upfront, no interest will be paid on. And if arrangement have been made with draft to cover costs and appropriate payment methods are used, this will be uncalled for. 28 is cash on delivery. If the consignee purports or wants to have the goods delivered, we see it, and before they pay, cash on delivery, that is one of the ways of paying for goods in international trade. It's conditional. 29 is place and date that the consignment note is made. That is mandatory. 29 is also mandatory. Then it's about description of documents. Part 48 is examination, results of examination by carrier undertaking it. It means when the loading is done and it's handed over, if the carrier finds anything untoward regarding loading or the way the cargo is placed or stowed, or if there's any wedging, after examining it, the carrier would make notes in the consignment note. 49 is about prepayment coding, and it's mandatory. 50 is the route. In section 50, the route will have to be stated, and quite often the forwarder determines the route and agrees with the carrier. So the route will have to be stated. If the carrier chooses any other route and anything happens, sometimes the insurance may not be effective. So the route will have to be stated on the consignment note. And this is something that has to be done. Number 51, which is part 51, custom procedure, is mandatory. If goods are being shipped or exported, the name and code for the station where these formalities take place have to be stated on the consignment note. That is, the forwarding station where the declaration was made and custom did the due diligence to the document and approved of it to be forwarded. Part 52 is about charge notes, and this is where costs are inset and dates are indicated. Part 53 is notification of payment number, and is the indication of notification payment form and date of its return. Part 54 is formal report. This is conditional, details of the number on report form and date made out. Part 55 is extension of transit period. If there is any reason for the transit period to be extended, for instance, if there are institutional delays or technical delays or any other delay whatsoever, it's got to be indicated in the consignment note, so that in case of delay, that will mitigate the liability to either the carrier or whoever has to make good claims being made. There are also other factors that may lead to the delay.